Collaborator, try to expand on my ideas. And each of these little characters is reading your text as you're writing it. And if they see something that they can improve or they can suggest upon based on their character, they will like suggest that you revise it. So as you mentioned, there's no prompting required from you in this interface. You're just writing, and these kind of characters are ambiently in the background. I'm very interested in how language models can be ambient supporters in systems and not constantly like the only thing on the interface is you prompting this text box. It's like I want to be doing other things, and I want them to be subtly supporting me on very specific tasks and very specific helping actions without it being like I'm having to come up with a new prompt every single time, because that's cognitive labor I don't want to do. I'm trying to do other things.
Right. I mean, like we got used to that a little bit with GitHub Copilot because we're not constantly prompting it. It's just helping us wherever we happen to be, whatever we happen to be doing, which is so cool. Is what would do I have it right that what happens behind the scenes then is if you've selected some paragraph or something, and then you've clicked on elaborate, what it does behind the scenes would be like take your paragraph, put some quotes around it, and then send in a pre-constructed prompt that's like, take this paragraph and elaborate on it like a sophomore in college would, or like you're still using prompts. It's just however you've programmed it that they're hidden.
Exactly. So I think a lot of my snarkiness in saying I hate chatbots or being critical of them is that I think at the moment developers and designers who are building these language model products or the early versions of them are trying to put all the cognitive load onto the user to figure out what to do with their product. Like they're not being opinionated enough, because really prompts are something that we as the creators should be writing and crafting and perfecting and testing and like fine tuning on and making really, really good. And they're just like code. The user shouldn't have to write the code like saying what their app should do. They should just be handed the app, and it should be obvious what the app does, and the app should do that thing really well. And in this new kind of language model world where they're part of our build chain, we have to decide, first of all, what the app actually does. It's not just an open text box. We're going to be like, okay, this thing's going to help you write in a certain way, or it's going to help you synthesize ideas in a certain way. And we should hide the prompts from the users. I mean, there's a little bit of a debate around this. I mean, we could definitely move into a world where users get used to sort of being able to edit different functions, and they could see the prompt and maybe edit it themselves. But end users shouldn't have to be prompting experts. Like, then you're just asking them to, you want to give them control and an agency over how their tools work. But at the same time, are they really going to write a better prompt in like the 5 minutes they spend thinking about it than if you and your team spent a week perfecting this prompt and like training data on it and like really making sure it does the thing well?
Right. And does prompt seem like the only way you're going to be able to ever ask one of these language models a question? Prompting seems here to stay, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much. There are a few other kind of ways we can influence them. So I mentioned something called fine tuning, which is when you give them lots of example data and you tell them, like, given this input, here's the ideal output. And so you can kind of fine tune the model to respond in the way you would like it to. So you could feed in a bunch of like poorly written essays and then also give it in the training data, it turning those into like grammatically correct, well-written, intelligent essays, and it would learn this is the kind of output that they want me to give, and then it'll perform better based on that data.
Is fine-tuning, this came out, we had Swix on the show a couple weeks ago, but...
Oh yeah, I just saw him the other day.
Isn't he great? He's just a fantastic human. But fine-tuning, is that something I do like once or and then I have my own baby model, or is it something you do like every prompt? You're like every prompt I'm sending this like expectation back, or
it's something you don't do that often. It's not like you fine tune every single time a new prompt comes, a user interacts with the system. It's something you might like code, like update every now and again, but mostly like you fine tune it once. If it works, it works. Maybe later you get more training data and you fine tune it more. But more fine tuning doesn't necessarily, there's like diminishing returns. It doesn't lead to like infinitely better answers. At some point, you've given it enough examples that it just like gets what you want.
So I assume that's part. It sounds like you're doing more with Elicit, but like if I was making Dave Rupert LLC was making an AI. I would want to fine tune it to whatever my business is doing, or CodePen's AI would be kind of fine tuned towards code suggestions or cool effects or something. Yeah, kind of CSS tricks or something baked in.
Yeah.
I'll mention that just because I just had experience with it this week, and it was an interesting UI that I guess did it both ways, was the new Photoshop beta. I don't know who exactly and how access is delivered, but I happen to have Creative in Cloud installed on my machine, so I just opened that and clicked their little beta apps thing and downloaded it, and it seemed to come down for free, and I just popped it open and used it. And one of the tasks I wanted to do was to kind of stretch out an image. The classic, like, it was a picture of a hamburger and it was too tightly cropped, and I wanted to make it about twice as big on all sides. And you specifically mentioned you're more into language models and not the image ones, but as far as interface design is, I thought this was interesting, is that it would, then I stretched out the canvas, which was just nothing around the outside of the original image. And it has a generative fill button, and you can just click it and it'll just do it. You don't have to say anything. It's just a button. But right below the button is a little input, and you can prompt it if you want. It's like optional prompting. And even after you've prompted it, it gives you tips and stuff, because it takes 30 seconds or so for it to do what it needs to do. Speaking of product design, it's taken that opportunity because it knows you're just staring at the bar. Like, hey, because what I typed in was like, please just extend the background normally or something, which is probably the worst prompt in the world, because what is normally? It probably has no idea what I mean, but I didn't know what else to type, so I typed that, and it was like, maybe you should have just typed nothing. It like gave me this little poke, like not the best prompt,
User education in action.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. But I thought it was clever that you could go either way, and it got me thinking, I like that. It's like a chat bot, but you don't have to use it.
Yeah. I bet I haven't seen much of what Adobe's doing, although I have heard, like, I used to be a huge, like, I was an illustrator, I worked in Adobe, like, Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop just constantly, but I haven't seen the tools in so long, just because I've moved into such a different space and way of working. But I hear they're doing really interesting things with like UI for generative images and editing, and giving people control, like not just prompting into a text box to get an image, which seems so strange, because like that's clearly not the right medium to make an image in. It's like, describe the image in words is not how we make images. So I really have been meaning to go look at what they've been doing, because I hear that it's actually quite sophisticated, or they're genuinely putting sincere effort and time into developing.
Yeah, it seems like it. The beta is pretty like UI forward with those tools, probably on purpose. Like we know why you downloaded the beta. We're gonna be pretty clear about that.
Yeah.
Y'all should check out Maggie's Dribble. You clearly know what you're doing in Illustrator. Jeez, wow.
It's been a while though. That's all quite old at this point. I think I still illustrate for my own essays and like notes, but I stopped professionally illustrating like 4 or 5 years ago. But it was really fun when I did it. And now it's strange to see all the generative image like models come out, and it's not like I kind of go, I'm glad I stopped, but I just go, oh my god, my job would have been so much easier if I had generative image stuff back then. I would have been so much faster. Even just generating reference images, I would spend so much time like taking photos of my hand in certain positions, or like having to go get props and take photos of them for reference. I could have just prompted it in this day and age.
Unfortunately, I can scroll up and down your room and be like, yeah, I could. Like, I know that it's handcrafted because you did it, but it does look. They look a little like they could have been generated these days. Our brains are already broken in that way.
Yeah. So a lot of it's actually interesting. A lot of the illustration work I did was for a company called Egghead, which listeners might know. They're a JavaScript developer education company. And so a lot of it was sort of cover images for that. And it's really interesting. The team had taken each of my existing illustrations and used Stable Diffusion, one of the open source image models, and tried to train it on my artwork to see if it could generate more. And it did. They sent me a bunch of the samples, and it's actually pretty decent. It was able to mimic my style pretty well. There were still artifacts I could tell I didn't really make it, but I was impressed.
How does that make you feel? Are you like that's the way the web works, or are you like Mike Montero, F you, pay me? Like, how does that make you feel?
I was thrilled. I mean, I think I'm in a very different position to a lot of the artists and illustrators who are really feeling emotionally negative about what's unfolding right now, because it's not my livelihood anymore. But and I mostly get excited about capabilities. I mostly go, that is incredible that we managed to get a computer to like